Well, here is John Taylor Gatto.
You'll probably notice before very long that I'm working from a script. I want you to know that I could throw this script away, bar those doors, and I could speak to you all night long. But this script is to protect you. When I originally spoke with Sarah, it was my intention to come up here and make a presentation from the book that I'm completing now called Weapons of Mass Instruction. But somehow or other, I forgot that we had made that arrangement. And so you're going to get a different presentation, but I'll give you a sample of what I mean by weapons of mass instruction. Those are very, very precise tools buried into the structure of schooling that prevent the development of imagination in particular, intellect, initiative. I know that sounds conspiratorial. It's not intended to be, and I'd like to justify temporarily the people who gave us this form of instruction of the young, without any exception at all from the intellectual community. The idea of education itself for the last 500 years has been worse than sneered at by major intellectuals. They simply claim that it's impossible, that it can't take place. And I'd like to just briefly walk you through a few of those, even though that was not my intention when I sat down up here. But I think that rather than just being some raving lunatic from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I'll show you what the hidden foundation of my own research has been. In the 16th century, a major theological figure, John Calvin, whose influence still is all over Canada and the United States and most of the world, wrote an enormous book called Institutes of the Christian Religions, 4 really large volumes. And since Calvin was a first-class legal mind, not initially a theologian, it's written with this tremendous intellectual rigor. In it, Calvin says that you've heard the idea predestination, but here are some of its implications. Calvin says that since the unfolding of human society and human life was known before the possibility existed, that most of the people born and who live on this planet are doomed, and there's no possible way for them to redeem themselves. They're doomed to eternal torment. Now, notice that the original Christian idea, which we would call the Catholic idea today, is sin and redemption. But at the core of Calvinist predestination, which had an immense influence, certainly on this part of the world, perhaps the most important influence was this idea. The vast mass of the population could not be redeemed whatever they did. Notice what that does to the idea of education. And suspiciously, I think, where we get the very first forced schooling laws is straight out of the Calvinist community. They couldn't actually make those laws work, but they passed the laws and tried to make them work. But they had no intention of accepting the idea that some child of the damned, himself or herself damned, could be redeemed. Now, I know that you're all modern Canadians, and you say, well, we don't think that way anymore. Okay. In 1670, perhaps one of the 3 or 4 most potent philosophers in modern history, Benedict Spinoza, I know that he's carried in the library as Baruch Spinoza. He never signed his name Baruch Spinoza, but always Benedict. But Benedict Spinoza, known in the university community as a liberal thinker, actually said that almost every, notice the connection I'm about to show you between him and Calvin, although Spinoza was rabidly anti-religious. Spinoza said that the vast majority of the human race is permanently irrational and dangerous. And that the only way, 1670 is the book, it's Tractatus Religico Politicus. That's the name of the book, and I'll bet you it'll be in the public library system of Ottawa, and certainly in the university system. In Tractatus, Spinoza said to the reigning heads of European governments, and he was intensely read by the founders of the United States, he said that because of this permanent disability of irrationality, some way had to be found to bind the common population, fill its head with illusions, destroy its ability to imagine, which is what really made it dangerous. In other words, he created the clear idea and purpose for institutional public schooling. If you ever read Thomas Jefferson, who's a wonderful American figure, Jefferson said that schooling would be a mere civil religion. So I knew he had read Spinoza, because civil religion is what Spinoza intended to create to replace inspirational religion. Civil religion. School would be a civil religion, and Jefferson said school has only 5 justifications. To teach people their rights is first and foremost, and to teach them how to defend their rights is an essential reciprocal of that, because if you know your rights and don't know how to defend them, they're simply an abstraction. Then he said it would be justified if it taught useful knowledge, such as building a house, building a boat, making clothing, growing food, etc., etc. If it taught an ever-present skepticism against expertise, because Jefferson knew that the Greeks had scorn for specialists and experts, believing that anyone who was crazy enough to unbalance their life that way might be useful in limited situations, but clearly they had bad judgment and probably were dishonest there. So it was to teach experts to stay in their places because they would have bad judgment. And finally, it was to know the ways of the human heart so well that you could neither be cheated nor fooled. And Jefferson said, if schools don't teach those 5 things, they're a mere civil religion, plugging into Spinoza's fervent hope for schooling, that it would replace religion. So now I'm taking you from Calvin, intensely God-soaked, to Spinoza, so purely atheistic that he was pitched out of his synagogue and they said, don't come back. But I can go a little bit farther than that, and I really should.